I just have a couple of comments. With respect to, we were asked to comment about what, if we know anything, what might it mean for New Zealand co-ops. So what I thought I put down a couple of comments, and I want to take from today's presentations. We had a wonderful panel here by four, Standards & Poor's and three co-op banking entities. And I think it's important to reflect on how important the debt providing entities that are owned by its members, how important that's been to many of the co-op sectors. I don't think we appreciate that as much as we might. And so my comment here is the co-op banking system has been really critical in supporting many of the co-op movements that many of us, in the countries that many of us are from. Second, I just want to, I commented that I've spent a lot of time running around the world, and what amazes me is how robust the cooperative sector is, or the cooperative sectors are in the OECD countries, and emergingly so in some of the developing countries. Now, what's interesting, and one of our speakers, Jack, said that FAO was changing its mind, and the World Bank is thinking of changing its mind about, instead of calling it co-ops, they call them producer-owned companies, or farmer-owned businesses, etc. And they're investing heavily into understanding what that might mean per se, and cooperatives are one model of that. And I've been pretty involved with both FAO and World Bank, and what can we bring to New Zealand from that experience? That's a point I want to make. And recently I was in Uganda, and I was meeting with these small dairy co-ops throughout Uganda, and there's a single buyer of milk in Uganda. I won't mention its name, but the buyer even owns the milk coolers, the chillers. And so if a member, if a milk producer wants to sell to someone else, he cannot chill his milk. So he has to sell to a neighbor, and it's not chilled milk. And that reminded me, as I interviewed these farmers, most of them, their parents had been killed by Idi Amin. And Idi Amin, Uganda had one of the most flourishing co-op movements in the world before 1970. And Idi Amin came in, destroyed that, and destroyed all the co-op leaders. It was interesting. And so they were attempting, Ono said something interesting about trust, and so did Nicola, how important trust is. These guys don't trust yet the institutional environment that they can form in groups. Meeting in groups for 20 years was illegal. Can you imagine? I mean, just try to go back, and having a meeting like this was illegal. And so what that did for me, and the point I want to pass on to you, is how fortunate, Nicola mentioned healthy tension, the ability, the freedom to discuss or to communicate your opinions regarding decisions you're making collectively per se. And so the point in both the OECD countries and the developed, what I noticed is this growing heterogeneity, technology. They had no telephone lines in either of these countries I was working in, but everyone had 2 cell phones. That technology itself was making it possible for them to do things collectively that they could never do in the past. Yet the heterogeneity, the preferences they were expressing, led to their inexperience in governing themselves was so shocking that it leads me to, I have 3 points I want to make. How important training is at the governance level, how important training at the general management level is, and how important it would be for co-op educators to really understand cooperatives. Consequently, if we tie those 3 training things together, and that's the purpose of this meeting today, it's really critical. I mean, this only happened 2 months ago. How important, how delinquent we are in putting together the resources we have to really build strong educational programs. Then my last point, I just want to, wherever I've been, I just arrived from Finland, where 27 countries were meeting, co-op leaders from 27 countries, and the number one issue, this is interesting, and I think it might have implications for New Zealand co-ops. The number one topic that was discussed among all of these co-op academic leaders was whether or not a cooperative should have foreign members. You might think that's not important, but in this globally expanding world, and imagine in Europe, how the only place they have to grow is across borders. And what I read about your successful co-ops here is this is a really interesting dilemma, and it challenges a lot of our thinking about what is a cooperative. So I just wanted to bring those points as we have time perhaps for discussion. That if we just stuck to this last one, that itself would be, we would learn a lot about ourselves in how we would answer that question. Thank you.